Let me go through my presentation quickly. I have a few more slides. And I'm going to invite my good friend from the World Bank to come in. Okay? And let's open another set of discussion before Anna comes in. How about that? Keep your issues with you for a few. Huh? You just have a few more things to go through. So, you see, what I was telling you is one of the features of this independent review mechanism is that everything that you do has to be triggered, right, by an issue, a complaint, a request that has come your way. All right? So when you or on behalf of somebody has raised an issue, this is, we have a very set of procedures that we go through. The details of that, I'll come back to that in a later presentation, right? So we can, and we have discussed this, we can facilitate the dialogue, right? My sense is I'm looking forward to really strengthening this component of our work. Whichever way it goes, we must do that. I have responsibility in that part. But the minute you go into investigation to see whether bank policies have not been complied with, it's a whole ball game. This is where we bring these experts in, and it becomes a huge policy discussion, a huge policy debate. It benefits a lot the institution, potentially, but I don't think the person who has raised the issue, gains a lot into the process. So, if you want investigation and compliance review, you really, you have to be the guy who's not selfish, because if you're selfish, you won't want to do that, right? So, a few things that you always have to have in mind. One, this issue of independence. We have to maintain that. If you don't, then there is no system, right? Constantly, whenever we engage with management, with everybody else, I tell the president, please, you sit on the one side and I sit on the other, right? Please don't. It has to be like that. We are human beings. We like to be police. If you remove that whip, then, it becomes a zoo. So we have to keep doing that. So, and again, the communities and everybody there, it's open for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, whatever, if you're a group, you're a bunch of guys, you are two guys, you're one individual, you can go ahead and do it. No, you have to be two. Because if one person, if it's only one individual, then, sometimes you have to at least two. Okay? So what this system does, it puts a lot of pressure on people like Anna. The bank staff now, they know that if they mess up, they will pay a heavy price later. So it encourages them to pay due diligence. And I think this is extremely important. You don't see this, in monetary terms, you cannot, estimate it, but I think it's important. So what we also do is that, whenever there is an agreement with management that they will implement remedial actions, which they have described, right? The boards put a stamp on it, and I monitor to ensure that they say or they do what they say, right? So, if you don't do that, then, I harass you again. So we have it's a very interesting system where you can harass the management all the time. And then I think what is also good is this outreach. We have the opportunity to let you know what it is, and then what we can do together for, all kinds of stakeholders. Okay? Now, I think Anna will come back on this issue. My message, and which I want to stop on here. You see, this thing, it has implications. It has costs, right? If you don't comply with your own policies, it has implications. So I think the one that is hidden the most, it is a reputational cost. You see, sometimes we are in institutions and we forget that people out there have, they have judgment, right? And if people don't trust you, these ADB people, you raise your issues, they will never handle it anyway. So you lose credibility. What is an institution if you lose credibility? So it's important that we all understand that, it has a cost. The other one is, the compliance review process. Anna knows that's why she doesn't want me to be involved. It takes time. It's costly for her and her team and operations. They have to spend a lot of time trying to catch up on the things that they did not in the first place. Yes. Anna says that we went to Tanzania 5 times for the avocado tree. So, now seriously, I mean, because I fight her, she thinks that it's nothing. I don't care. That person there, it's important for him, right? So, me, I take side. It's that person that I care about, not you. So, it was very interesting. So, again, I wanted to flag these few things to you and tell you, let me probably not spend too much time on these 2 cases because we have had some experience that we wanted to share with you on Medupi and also on Senegal. No, there's no South Africa. None of the CSOs are from South Africa here, right? Okay, maybe. You see, Medupi is this energy project no, this is Senegal. This is a roads project. Nos amis du Sénégal? Hein? Voilà. Vous savez, il y avait ce projet-là que la banque avait financé. Et puis encore une fois, souvent pour les gens, c'est des petites choses. Les gens qui se sont plaints, il y avait une école et puis il y avait des questions de compensation. D'accord? L'école coranique. La route, on va dégager l'école. D'accord? Si vous dégagez l'école, vous allez déplacer l'école, aller reconstruire ailleurs. Ben, écoutez, moi, c'est bien pour vous. Pour vous, c'est très simple. Mais moi, ça change mes données comment j'habite à côté. Parce que pour moi, j'amenais mon enfant à l'école coranique rapidement, là, et puis je partais le chercher. Mais si vous allez construire ce truc-là à 10 000 km, qu'est-ce que vous voulez que je fasse? Si je suis à Dakar, je ne sais pas ce que je vais faire. Donc, c'est peut-être souvent, de notre côté, quand tu es trop engagé dans les projets, tu penses que c'est des petites choses. Mais en réalité, pour les gens, c'est un peu trop compliqué. Donc, ils ont quand même évoqué ce cas-là. Heureusement que toutes les parties ont été d'accord pour qu'on négocie. Finalement, ça a pris, je pense, c'était depuis 2011. On vient de clore le cas. Donc, en fait, la requête est venue. On en a discuté en interne. On a vu que c'était fondé. On a approché donc ceux qui ont fait la requête et puis l'unité de mise en œuvre du projet. Et puis finalement, ça a pu être réglé. Ça arrive pour les projets d'infrastructure routière, je pense que c'est beaucoup plus facile. Mais par contre, sur les projets d'énergie, c'est un peu plus délicat. Parce qu'en général, les projets d'énergie, il faut le barrage. Parce que la plupart des cas, là, ça vient sur les barrages ou alors les centrales, n'est-ce pas? Les trucs de production et puis les trucs de distribution. Donc le cas de Medupi était particulièrement difficile parce que ça se faisait à un moment où l'Afrique du Sud voulait produire de l'énergie à partir du charbon. La question du charbon liée au débat sur le changement climatique était vraiment à son pic. Et donc personne n'en voulait. Et donc une batterie de plaintes qui ont été orchestrées dans ce contexte-là. Et là, il y avait un cas ce n'était pas nécessairement les bénéfices à la population, mais ça c'était un cas d'école, hein, que la Banque mondiale nous-mêmes et les autres, on a tous traité parce que les gens disaient que ce projet en particulier les banques enfreignaient à leur politique. Nous, c'était beaucoup plus difficile que la banque parce qu'au niveau de la Banque mondiale, vous n'avez pas de politique en matière d'énergie. À la base, il y a une politique en matière d'énergie. Donc, tu vois, c'était un peu plus délicat pour nous. Donc, je voulais évoquer ces 2 cas-là pour vous donner un aperçu. Ce sont des choses réelles et qui se passent et c'est souvent coûteux. Donc, laissez-moi, je vais m'arrêter là. Je vais m'arrêter là pour vous dire que, écoutez, dans les 4 dernières années à peu près, 12 plaintes essentiellement, mais on reçoit beaucoup d'autres requêtes qui ne sont pas nécessairement fondées. C'est des petites choses, c'est des questions d'information, de précision. Si tel est le cas, on envoie ça à la personne indiquée. Et donc, on enregistre les cas vraiment les plus difficiles, d'accord? Et puis, on essaie de voir dans quelle mesure. Et donc, on a commencé donc à avoir ce genre de statistiques. On a une base de données. Et l'idée, c'est quand même d'exploiter cette base de données là pour tirer des enseignements pour voir un peu comment est-ce qu'on peut améliorer le système, qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire avec les unités de mise en œuvre de projet, qu'est-ce qu'on devrait faire en interne avec les gens des opérations, et puis ceux qui s'occupent des questions de sauvegarde, etc., etc. Donc, déjà, on commence à savoir quels sont les problèmes récurrents. Je pense que c'est l'intérêt de l'exercice. Je m'arrête là. Je t'invite, donc, tu parleras un peu de la banque, et puis ensuite, on va ouvrir pour qu'il y ait un peu d'échange. Ah, a pressing issue, huh? Yeah. You are the only one, nobody else, huh?
Good morning, everyone. I thank the presenter very, very much for a brilliant presentation and introduction given to the participant this morning. I just want to address 3 issues. The first issue is the distribution of questions. This morning we observed that the questions are not fairly distributed. I mean, the participants here are composed of government representatives, PIUs, and civil societies. But what we notice, the questions have been concentrated on phases, maybe people that you've met before, or you know of issues. I mean, some people speaking 3, 4, 2 times, while others want to raise up their hands. I mean, they are not given the chance to speak. That's my first issue, and that's an observation. Thank you. The second issue hinges on the independence of the IRM. I want to clearly note or to explain how independent is this one, because according to you, you made your report to the board and not to the president. And who is the chairman of the board? It is the president. So I want clarification on that issue. And the third issue is on compensation, which is very, very critical. Because we know in bank-funded projects, compensations are paid by the borrower. And compensation issues, as I say, are critical. Because, for instance, if individuals, communities knew about the construction of a road project, government have might done feasibility studies long before this time, right-of-way cleared. And people know that, I mean, they'll be compensated. Some will come onto the right-of-way while the project is at the initial stage, put up structures. So my, advice or whatever question is, the review mechanism or the compliance when issues arrive, I think should be done in consultation with government to know the issues. I mean, government will not dislike its people, its citizens, because a lot of them, that's why, they try to bring in like projects, hydro, road projects and the other thing. But then they have laws. Each and every country has laws. Some have developmental laws wherein in terms of development, they may even have the right to forceful acquisition of property as long as it is developmental. I think when the committee is working, you are reviewing, looking into these issues, I think you have to also consult with government and you get to the bottom of each issue because they are cross-cutting and they are very complex in some instances. Thank you.
No, you are 100% right, and my apologies. It was not on purpose. You're right. 2 or 3 things very quickly. You see, again, there is no absolute independence anyway. It's always, a matter of judgment and institutional setup. The governing entity of the African Development Bank is the board, right? You have the governors, but in reality, the governors have empowered the boards to be there on a daily basis on their behalf to really, they are the one governing. The decision is,
Who take the decision? The EDs or the governors are right on the ground? The EDs? Fine. The governors are at the back. Good. Okay.
Policies and projects, it's the boards that approves.
Okay.
They are sitting there.
Okay.
The governors have empowered them to represent.
Okay.
So you have to look at the institution, just like a country. In a country, you have a judiciary, you have the executive branch, right? You have parliament, okay? So everybody plays their own role to ensure that the country is governed and the country progresses. ADB cannot be any different. Any other institution is not different. We have an internal structure. There are checks and balances in the system, all right? We are meant to be, if there are checks, we have a balance, right? or the other way around. The most important thing is, right, management. I'm independent vis-a-vis management. Okay? The president represents management in that context, all right?
Yeah.
he doesn't come in as a chair of the boards, right? Because you see, on management is there, they develop project, their responsibility is to bring that project to the boards and have the boards approve it, right? So I have to be detached from that project development operations, all right? My structure has to be structured in such a way that the president cannot have an influence on me, okay? If he wants to have an influence on me, he has now to sit among all the board's members. Yes, he's the president, but he's a board member. So he comes in, when it has to judge me, it's not alone. He doesn't do it alone. When he can do that with the others, okay? So it's a check and balance in the system, and this is, I mean, that's the only potential thing. Otherwise, you bring an independent thing.
The reason is like, I just want like you to make a comparison like the World Bank and yours. Theirs is a panel. I mean, it's a panel.
No, there is a secretariat to manage a panel.
Within the bank?
Yeah. Yeah, he will make a presentation. He will make a presentation.
Okay.
There is a secretariat and a panel, but I have the same. I have a panel of experts. Okay. It's the same structure, almost. Let him make a presentation and then we can clarify. And I couldn't agree with you on the issue of compensation. Let's discuss it later.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you allow him to make his presentation and we can open
Just clarification, sir.
Please.
I'd like you to make some certain clarifications. I enjoyed your presentation. But I think to me, you have succeeded in telling us what you do, isn't it? And one of your focal points or areas is the civil society. Now, civil society is very critical, but you didn't tell us. I'm not a civil society person, but I've been working with civil society people. You have not told us the template for civil society to do their job. You haven't done that. Civil society must have a way, to do what you want them to do. There must be harmony. And that can only be reduced to a particular template, so that somebody in Senegal, a civil society person in Senegal who's associated with African Development Bank has a template. Somebody in Nigeria has a template. Somebody in Ghana also has a template. So that these issues of avocado tree compensation and all that will not be a problem. Because, there are peculiarities in different countries. So whilst you have succeeded in telling us what your functions are, how important they are, you have not been able to tell us the functions and the template for civil society.
I'll come back to that.
Okay then.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm gonna be very quick because obviously you have a lot of questions. I'm gonna start by the point you're making, Mr. About our mechanism addressing the concerns of civil society. In reality, we are mechanisms addressing the concerns of communities. And every one of you is a member of a community. And every one of your communities can at any time be affected by a World Bank or an African Development Bank project. So taking it from there, I just want to point out that these mechanisms, whether it's the inspection panel, whether it's the World Bank's mechanism or the African Development Bank mechanism, are citizen-driven accountability mechanisms to make the voices and to solve the concerns, in the case of the CRMU, to solve the concerns of affected people for more shared prosperity, shared benefits of the project, and it's because it's the general interest of the country and that you each represent. I'm not going to dwell on the history because Sekou covered it very well. I just want to make a point that in 1992, in Rio de Janeiro, there was the Earth Summit, the United Nations Sustainable Development Conference. It was called the Earth Summit. During that Earth Summit, 182 governments met and agreed to a set of principles as part of the Rio Declaration. Principle 10 said basically that any community affected by or covered by a developmental activity has the right to public participation, has the right to transparency, to know, for information, and has the right to redress. And that's where we come in. The right to approach these mechanisms is yours. We're not here because we have a job and we have to justify it. We're not here because we want to annoy Anne or management or even governments. We're here because there's a fundamental right given to communities to raise their concerns whenever there's a project that is affecting them or is likely to affect them. The bank's mechanism, the inspection panel, is based on the idea that there could be harm or likelihood of harm. Whenever this harm could materialize, then there's an opportunity to approach the inspection panel and file a complaint. The complaint has to be about bank's own omissions or activities or actions in the context of the implementation of a project, and these omissions and actions are taken from the bank's policies. The panel has an interactive process with management. It's an investigation unit. We investigate bank compliance with bank policies, but it's an interactive process. We try to resolve issues. We aim for opportunities for early problem solving. The accessibility to the panel is very basic, just like in the African Development Bank, although I think in the African Development Bank the threshold is even lower. You can file an anonymous request. With the panel, you cannot file an anonymous request. You can ask for confidentiality and no one will know your identity, but you have to be, you have to present yourself so we can communicate and interact with you. The project has to be active. The harm has to be related to a project. The bank has to have prior knowledge and have had the opportunities to solve this, the issue that it and then there's two restrictions. One, that the issue raised is not related to procurement, and the second, that the panel has not already made findings on these issues unless it is justified by new evidence. And just to conclude, we've had a lot of work in Africa. And the reason I'm saying that, because I want to emphasize again that it is your right to raise concerns. If you have if there's a project that is affecting your community and you feel it will cause harm, then it is your right to approach the mechanisms and raise these concerns in the interest of resolving the situation. And we've had a few cases in West Africa, and actually I put one at the end that is not in West Africa, but I'll cover it. And I want to just mention that Michael Karibko, here present with us, was the lead requester in the West Africa gas pipeline request for inspection. And thanks to Michael's actually efforts, people who were compensated at 10% of the real market value because of some mistake, some bureaucratic mistake that happened, no one noticed, they actually got 90% more than what they had received originally, because that mistake was corrected. And it was a genuine mistake. There was no ill intention in it. Of course, there were many other issues raised in the complaint. There was an issue on gas flaring. The panel process is not perfect. It doesn't resolve everything. But if it resolved one or two of these issues, then this is much better for the communities than without having approached the mechanism. We have another complaint today from Nigeria, and we received it a month ago. And both management and the requesters have agreed to try to resolve these issues. We're piloting a new process where we actually do some mediation and problem solving. And this is the first case we would be testing it. We would be testing the mediation at the panel with. So it's underway, and we've seen, and the requesters have seen, the proposals from management and the government to solve the problem. They're very promising, so we're very hopeful that this will get resolved. We had another case in Ghana, a landfill in Kwabenya, that never actually materialized. it never materialized. There was a school in Kwabenya also, and I think the head of the school didn't want the landfill to be, and it's a waste landfill, so there'd be a lot of garbage, and people are living in this area. So they disputed the concept, and it was challenged, and the project never materialized, even with the agreement of the Ghanaian government. So the project didn't move forward. There was a lot of back and forth between the bank and the Ghanaian government. And finally, I want to mention a case in Congo where Pygmy people have launched the request, and it led to the national recognition of their identity as indigenous peoples. So a lot of benefits can happen at different levels, in different contexts, if you actually have the courage to approach these mechanisms. Our job is to make sure that no negative impact actually happens, that it's all benefit, but not only that, that the benefit is shared, because it is the general interest of the project and of everyone in the room and outside. Thank you very much. I wanted it short so we can continue with the questions and answers. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. My name's Anna Rutebuka. I work for the African Development Bank in the Quality Assurance and Results Department and in the Safeguards Compliance Division. Now, I think it's the right thing to have this presentation now because most of the questions and issues that are coming up are related to what I would say and what he already said. The bank, I'll give you a quick introduction that the bank has a total of 13 cross-cutting policies, but mainly for environment and social safeguards, I will concentrate on 2 of them. That's the involuntary resettlement policy and the environmental policy of the bank. We all know why we need to have these policies in place, to safeguard the interests of the people that we are supposed to be, who are supposed to benefit from these projects, to safeguard government's interests and safeguard the bank's investments. We have, these policies also assist us in making decisions that we invest where projects and programs and benefits can be sustained. Of course, everything that now we do in the bank is on the, it's based on our long-term strategy. So whatever we do must hinge on that. In applying our environment and social safeguard policies, we have key principles. One is whenever you are dealing with the bank and you are dealing on environment and social safeguards, we would expect you to prevent negative environmental and social impacts. If you're a PIU and you are dealing with the bank, we would expect you to do everything possible to prevent negative impacts. But there are cases where you cannot prevent, you avoid. You see that those are 2 different things. You avoid, and if you can't avoid, then you mitigate the impacts. So those are the key principles that we follow as a bank. I can give you a quick example of a road. You may want to have a road project and you will prevent, some people can choose not to do this road in this particular place because of the negative impacts. But you can avoid some of these impacts by changing in the design and so on. But there are cases where you cannot avoid, where you cannot prevent or avoid. For example, you have to go through an urban area. There's no choice. You cannot change the design. You've looked at the cost, you've looked at all other alternatives, and that's the only way you are going to build this project. So you must do everything possible to mitigate the negative impacts. This is the typical African Development Bank project cycle. And at every stage, we have environment and social safeguards mainstreamed in this. When we do country programming, we do what we call CESA. That's where we do the strategic environment and social assessments. When we do project identification, we require our borrowers, with the assistance from the bank, to do project screening. When we do project preparation, the borrowers present to working with the bank's sector departments, which I will explain later. They prepare a PCN. Now, before they do the PCN, When they do project screening, they do a categorization memorandum, and this is done by the department in the bank that is responsible for that project. They propose that this is a project, that it is high risks, it is we think it should be category A or 2 or 1 or 2 or 3. I'll give you another slide on the categorization of these projects. Then when it comes to us in quality assurance, we say, yes, this is a very high risk project, it should be category 1. Mostly you'll find that the governments and the sector departments will always try to find the easy way out of saying, well, this is a category 2 project, so we can only do an environmental and social management plan and stop there. It is easier to do that. But we know when it comes to us, as a quality assurance department, we look at all the available information and we validate this categorization either as 2 or 1 or 3, depending on the outcomes of the screening. When we do that, we do a readiness review. Now here we are doing due diligence for quality at entry of all bank financed projects. We recommend, if it's a category 1 project, it means it has very high risk. It's a high risk project, so we can ask for an environmental, social, a full ASIA or a full SMP. We can demand for a RAP, which must also be brought to the bank for screening and reading and reviewing and approving. When we do that, we do the project appraisal after the PCN. Project appraisal, you have the bank team that come and work within governments to appraise this project. And at this point, we have read the environmental and social impact assessments and SMPs and RAPs, and that's when we declare this for disclosure. This now is going to be affected with by what was explained to you yesterday on disclosing information. How much of this will go in the public domain? And at this point, we can tell you that all this from PCN will be in the public domain and you will have access. So whatever is negotiated there and agreed, and if we have declared this, this has to be done before the project goes to the board. If it's a category 1 project, high risk, 120 days before they go to the board. Otherwise, they will not go to the board. Then whatever conditions we set for complying with environmental and social safeguard conditions, it goes into the loan agreement. After that, once the loans are signed and so on, and at implementation level, we still follow up. The sector departments do what we call supervision and monitoring, but our unit goes out to do auditing. So the cycle continues even when the project has come to an end. There's still a component to ensure that there's proper exit of this project regarding safeguards. Now this is where we all should be interested. How does all this work? How does it work for everybody to fit into mainstream, to watch and make sure and what motivates us to do what we do? We have the borrower, the main player in compliance. When a government comes to borrow money from the bank, I don't know, you prepare all the necessary documents. I know our core point is the Ministry of Finance in many cases, but they have to work with PIUs. For example, you are the roads, maybe you are the planning unit. Let me give an example. And you are the people working on this project. They say it's a road project. You have the ultimate responsibility of preparing and implementing the environmental and social impact assessment and all other related plans. It's your full responsibility. You have to do that. But to make it easy for you in the bank, we have sector departments. These are departments in the bank that help the borrower to prepare these projects and take them to the board. Now, these ones will work with the governments and the PIUs to provide guidance, to provide support for you to comply with the bank policies. When they do that, when they feel that they are ready, they have complied in the settlement action plan, they have included everything that we demand, that their SMP is up to standard, that they did proper assessments, then they submit to us. We are a watchdog of management to make sure that everything is in order. So when they submit the compliance and safeguards division, we review and ensure that they have complied. Now, if we, along the way, during this whole process, we have the civil society organizations. They play a role right with the borrower. They have a role to play with the sector departments to ensure compliance. When we are preparing the environmental and social impact assessments, we expect that they will consult with civil society organizations, that civil society organizations will make an input, that you have information that would help for us to have better designs of these projects at that point. And when it comes to, if we don't all comply to whatever is required, we have the CRMU. Now, at this point, I will share with you one secret. I hope you keep it, you don't tell others. You don't tell them, please, you are my BFFs, my best friends. The secret is for us and him, we are not friends. From time to time, we dread the day SECU will be on your case. For me in the bank, what motivates me as a compliance and safeguards officer of the bank, it's very bad. It destroys my reputation. If a project goes up there and then the president says, who is the expert who worked on this? And then they say, it's Anna, please come forward and explain. So it is important for us to make sure that each document that comes to us for review, we comply to bank policies. Things will turn around in the future if we don't make sure that everything is well done. So it goes to CRMU. If it goes to CRMU, then it comes back to us. Now, this function, we have the Compliance and Safeguards Division in the bank that was set up in 2008. Like I told you, it is also an accountability mechanism of the bank. What drives the governments when you are developing projects? PIUs, sometimes you develop these projects because you have a lot of political pressure on you to have projects. Am I not telling the truth? I was part of the PIU, and I would read the phone call comes from above. Why are you frustrating a road project and elections are coming? So you have a lot of pressure to have these projects happening as PIUs. The government wants road projects, the government wants dam, they want to tell the people that they are working, okay? They don't care about all this. And now when these governments put all these demands on you, and then we have the sector departments in the bank, their performance is measured by the projects which they deliver. So they also want to see these projects go to the board. If you are a department responsible for roads and you don't have any projects going to the board, it's a bit, so they are also eager to work with you and have these projects go to the board. And us, we are supposed also to be a watchdog for these people. And what drives us is the number of projects that we have complaints reflects on our poor performance. So it is in our interest that all projects get approved and implemented and completed without any complaints. Any complaint is a negative on us. So that is an internal mechanism that checks us. While others are measured by how many projects they bring in, for us, our performance is measured by 0 complaints on projects. So that's why this unit was put, because the bank understands what drives the other units. They want to deliver these projects. But this unit should be there to cross-check and make sure that there's compliance. But in 2010, new emerging issues started. We have now new things like climate change, green growth. So it is our responsibility also to look at the policy part of it, of those other issues. We also monitor the bank. We monitor and report on bank-related results and KPIs. And mainly now that we have the inclusive growth and green growth, there we play a bigger role. Oh, I think it's not. Okay. So I will take you to this slide where I was telling you, when you submit a project to us, there is no shortcut. If you have a project that has significant E&S impacts. Take, for example, if you have any project that is impacting on more than 200 or more people, automatically to us, that's a Category 1 project. So we require you to prepare what we call a full resettlement action plan. If you have projects that has all these negative impacts on the biodiversity, or that, we will require you to have a full environmental and social impact assessment. If you have just impact, it fits a project with site specific. For example, you are building a school. and we know the impacts are just limited to the area where you have the structures and small radius of around the project, there we ask you to prepare an environmental and social management plan. But we also have a category 3 projects. These are projects like budget support, governance, skills development. Really those, they don't have any E&S impact, so we keep it at that. Then we have category 4 projects where we do funding of financial intermediaries. When the bank is giving money to another financial intermediary for it to reach the ultimate beneficiaries. Here we do due diligence, but only to look at their E&S framework. During this process, it takes a bit of time, but I will tell you that when we do project identification, it's the borrower who does the screening. So if you are PIU here, don't complain. Whatever goes wrong on the project, for example, if we omit anything on your settlement and so on, you also are held responsible for that, because it's you people who go out there and do the screening. It's not the bank staff who go to the projects and do the screening. So you go, you do the screening, and you advise the sector departments what is on the ground. Then they submit to us asking for us to categorize this project. Then if we think it is appropriate, we categorize it. Then we advise that please go and do a environmental and social impact assessment, or SMP, or RAP. Still, the sector departments ask the PIUs to go and do all this. Now, sometimes it is very hard because some of the PIUs, I don't know how you do it in your own countries, but I used to be a part of the PIU in my country, and I know we used to use consultants to prepare all these documents. And when if you yourself, you are not very vigilant or very keen on these policies, you will tend to accept whatever the consultants will give you. And sometimes it's not in the compliance. You need yourself to be very well conversant with the requirements of your funding agency. So when you do that, you yourself as a PA, you are supposed to look at it, read the bank policy, ensure that it complies before you send it to the bank. So that's where the delays come from. If you don't do your due diligence, if you don't read this, if you don't review it, and you send it, it will still come back. It could take a year or two going up and down because you also have not done your job. So we need to help each other if we have to comply to this. So when they send, still it will come back to us for clearance. And when you do project appraisal, you will still do the same, but the clearance will come from us to say, please go out and disclose. Like I said, high risk impact projects, 120 days of disclosure. Others, they go for 60. For private sector, it is 60. And if you are disclosing an abbreviated RAP or SMP, it is just 30 days. During implementation, we follow up as a bank unit to do compliance reviews. We do audits. Sometimes we do desk reviews. But when it goes to complaints, sometimes if you raise complaints on these projects, then the goalposts shift a little bit. It becomes us against him. But I can assure you that's one of the worst scenarios. None of us likes that stage. So everybody works very hard because it will affect all the achievements of all the sectors. Because the borrower, you will not satisfy your government. I mean, the PIUs, you will not satisfy your government because the project will not be there. The sector departments will not satisfy the bank because they will not have a project. Us in the compliance review will not satisfy the bank because they think we don't know our job. We don't know what we are doing. So you can see, so when it reaches that point, we have all to work together to answer to CRMU. And I can assure you it's not a very easy thing. It reflects on you as a division, it reflects on you as a bank, it reflects on you as a department, and actually sometimes it goes down to touch individuals. Like I told you, if I pass a project, at some point they'll say, who is this bank staff who cleared such a project? So ultimately it could cost me as a person. So I have motivation to do very well. Now, we have this at screening level. What do we demand from you PIUs? We demand, for example, to give us the terms of reference, which most times you don't do. You give us the terms of reference, not to me, but to the sector departments. The experts of the bank will assist you to make sure you have appropriate terms of reference that will help whoever you have hired to do this work to include everything that complies with the bank. When we reach impact assessment, we demand that you do all those things: ecological, social, gender, physical, cultural resources, occupational health and safety. You include all this, but we also have helped you to make sure that it is within the terms of reference. Now, resettlement action planning. You know that resettlement is now becoming, involuntary resettlement is one of the biggest issues on the African continent. Land is close to people's hearts and to their pockets. So if you touch land, you touch people where it hurts most. This is, I think, all the cases we've had with the CRMU are related to resettlement action planning. We demand that project, if we miss any of those, civil society organizations, project affected people can always come to the bank and complain, because these are clearly spelled out in our policies. For example, we demand that all project affected people are identified, they are sensitized, they are told about this project, they are told about the right of way, how big is it going to be, who is going to be affected. We do socioeconomic studies because we don't like to make the situation, the livelihood, we don't want to take out the livelihoods of the people. So it is, the purpose of this is to make sure that at the end, they improve the livelihoods of the project affected people. So we do consultations. You must define the eligibility, who is affected, how are they affected, and what are they entitled to. You must look at valuation, you must look at the legal and policy framework. Now that answers his question of the countries have their own legal framework and the bank has its own policies. How do we harmonize on this? That's why we need the resettlement action planning when we are still preparing for the project. You must do an analysis of the legal and policy framework, very clearly defining the boundaries, defining the discrepancies, and you must agree with the bank before signing the loan on what is to be followed during compensation. And it is clear in the bank policy and the loan agreement that where there is a discrepancy, the bank policy will always supersede. So once you sign that, you cannot now go back and implement your own national registration. That's why we have that case. We want to see stakeholder, must demonstrate that you did stakeholder participation and you disclose. That's what you are saying. We disclose. We have guidelines on disclosure. You must follow all that. And so we demand also to disclose in a language that is understood by all. During implementation, we must also demonstrate that we processed the project through all the bank requirements. Now, you worry that we ask for too much. We are telling you about physical cultural resources, about CESA, about Asia, about country systems, frameworks, vulnerable people. How will you know all this if you are a PIU? And we also understand that you are not only dealing with African Development Bank. It's Afdb, it's World Bank, it's JICA. You are dealing with a multitude of financiers, and each one of them comes with their own set of requirements. So what can we do to help you to comply with us? So what we do, we have all these guidelines and guidance notes available on our website, available with our field offices, and you can always send an email through your, whoever is coming, the task managers. And whatever policy is being triggered on that project, you will have guidance on how to manage it. And it will be easier for you. So that's why we have all that information available. You don't have to crack your head to remember everything, but each time you have a project, it's triggering a resettlement, pull out our policy, pull out our guidance notes, and you'll be in business. You won't have any difficulties to meet that. So we are now revising our policies, and the outcome of this, we expect to have an integrated safeguard system. We are doing all this in a bid to make it easier for PIUs to comply, for civil society organizations to understand our policies and what we demand, and to be able to know where we are not complying and where we are complying. So this ISS will be launched. It is going to the board, and we hope that once it is approved, we'll have other sessions around the region to discuss this with you, to present it with you, to train you and make you, to sensitize you on this, on its requirements. Of course, here I have outlined, you will get this presentation, the reasons why we thought it was now high time we revise our policies. And the ISS will have guidance on operational safeguards on how you can handle the environmental and social assessments, on involuntary resettlement, on the biodiversity and ecosystems, on pollution, and now we have a new one which is on labor conditions. The bank also has a climate change safeguard system, which is not in the mainstream E&S safeguards policies, but this is now a new requirement of the bank, that for all the projects that are financed by the bank, they must be screened for climate change impacts. You will receive training at various stages on how this can be included. Of course, we talk of non-compliance. He mentioned that, I'll say this is my last slide. The reason in most cases, I realized why we have non-compliance. Upstream, when we are preparing these projects, usually we don't have any problem. Everything works out very well. The PIUs go read our policies and make sure that everything we ask appears in the documents. We want to talk about it, they will put it there. Everything will meet the bank's requirements. When we are doing our quality at entry, due diligence, everything will be like in the Bible. Chapter this, verse this. We refer to the Afdb. You understand? That's how they do it. It's very nice. It comes, you read the whole document, everything is perfect in compliance. Now they go back to implement. They do not follow what they wrote. It's easier to process and then sign the loan agreement. The case he mentioned is because you write even in the resettlement action plan that you will compensate, because we also make consideration of the registration of the countries. It's very clear. This resettlement defines compensation for all those individuals with assets and other sources of land within the 45 meters of the right of way as defined by the government X blah, 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 blah in the registration. We are all happy. We sign the loan. But when they go back, no. Everybody who is living within 45 meters will be evicted without compensation because our law came into place in 1923. You get the discrepancy here. It's not that the banker didn't do its due diligence. The PIU wrote very nice things, but when it comes to implementation, because you have the Auditor General to answer to, you have the government to answer to, you say, no, we are not going to Afdb policies. So that's where we have problems of compliance. You agree with the bank something, you want to implement something else. Now here we have the civil society organizations watching if you are really going to implement what you promised, if you are going to implement what was disclosed. Now for us, we are sitting in Tunis, we are sitting in Abidjan. We are not on the ground. We have hundreds of projects. We can't go looking at each with the tape measure, measuring the right of way. But we count on the civil society organizations. You know, most of our communities are not empowered enough. Most of our people are not empowered enough to be able to reach out to the bank. We have problems of access to internet, reading, newspaper. How much money, some people cannot even afford, no, many people cannot even afford to read the newspaper, to know that an announcement was put in the newspaper. You understand the challenges? So we count on the civil society organizations to be the watchdog, to see out there, because we know some of you read newspapers, to know that, okay, this is what the bank, that's what the borrower promised the bank, and they're doing different. So we count on you to do that. Like he said, this is my last slide. You know the cost of non-compliance. He told we've been to Tanzania. I just estimated 5 times. Personally, I've been there 3 times. Making the journey from Tunis through Dubai, sleeping in Tanzania 5 days. And with my colleagues, all we are solving what? One problem. I don't take this matter lightly. I'm not joking about it. We understand it is a serious problem. I'm not joking about it, but why such a problem could have been avoided in the first place? Studies have indicated that the costs to organizations, if you don't comply, is 2.65 to 3 times more than meeting compliance requirements. That the studies have shown that if you would meet compliance requirements, and it would cost you like $1 million. On top of that, if you don't comply, you may end up paying 2.6 million in addition to the 1 million. It's not expensive only for the bank. It's expensive for you. It's expensive for the governments, for individuals, because the complainant has always to be there when we are there. He has to leave his work, he has to take leave, he has to follow us in the field. So it's expensive for everybody. When I was in PI, I used to ask my task managers, if you cannot comply to some of these policies because you want to meet bank requirements, do it for patriotic reasons. Understand the cost of non-compliance to your countries, to your governments, to your people, to yourself. So you can imagine all that. Of course, we have the direct risks like health risks, loss of income, property, people becoming poor, just because we failed to comply. And then we have increased costs of doing business. If you have 5 people flying from Tunis to Tanzania 5 times, how much money is that? If you have to revamp, to reread, to rewrite the whole settlement action plan, procure a new firm to do it, hire consultants to follow up, to monitor, it becomes too expensive. Include inflation if you change your timelines. $1 million today is not $1 billion 2 years from now. So if you don't comply now and then you have to wait for another 2 years, if a kilometer of a road was costing $500 US, maybe this time it will go to 700. Changing timelines are expensive and inconvenient. Of course, they lose confidence in our corporate. African Development Bank has built its image for 50 years. They have worked on all this. It's a premium development institution, and I'm proud to say that it is rated a AAA financial institution. So we are not ready to compromise on this reputation because we are not complying. So overall compliance can erode in the intended development benefits. We have development benefits. You are putting a road. You don't comply to climate change requirements. The road is washed away. You leave people poorer than you found them. You evict people, they are hungry, they are poor. Then what type of development are you bringing? Ultimately, you've not brought what? Development, but problems. Sorry, I took a lot of your time. But thank you very much. I'm talking about a subject that I'm passionate about. Lot of demand. Imagine this Swiss company coming to new policies. People coming up with new ideas, new policies. So we want to work with you and use this opportunity to do this workshop. I took the liberty of preparing a PowerPoint, sort of template where we can include this, where we can put our ideas. But before we proceed, I will not be the chair. I would like to request that we have someone to lead the discussion and another person to take the notes. The one taking the notes will just be, members will give you the ideas and you just fill in the PowerPoint template that I prepared. So maybe we need to know each other, maybe we don't know each other.
I don't think we know each other.
Because I don't think since the workshop began yesterday we had an opportunity. Apart from meeting you formally.
Yeah.
Me, I'll start by myself. Like I said, I'm Afdb, and I work for the bank. I'm a safeguards specialist, and my responsibility is to ensure compliance with bank safeguard policies. So maybe.
Summary government representative.
Which government?
From Sierra Leone.
I'm Augustine Too. I work for the Liberian Anti-Corruption Commission.
Emmanuel Akinwumi is my name. Private sector specialist for Nigeria Country Office.
From Ghana, with the Department of Urban Roads, and the Ocean Classic Project Coordinator.
I'm from Nigeria, Federal Capital Territory Administration. Our project is strongly in the pipeline.
I'm Ishaq Mohammed. I'm with the Highways Department of Federal Ministry of Works, Nigeria.
I'm Engineer Bafo. I'm the project coordinator for Ghana Energy Development and Access Project, which is World Bank, Afdb, MLT,
Okay, so thank you everybody. So you can see the kind of the mix is. I'm very enthusiastic and I'm very excited that we will really generate some very useful information that will help us to improve the way we do business. So we will be working on when we have sort of problems that have to do with compliance. You've had the multitude of bank policies that we have on involuntary settlement. Now we have environmental. Then we will have other small things like gender, poverty, CSOs. All these are requirements. Now we are bringing all this biodiversity, pollution, occupational health and safety, climate change. Now the first question is, do you, in your view, or from where you come from, think that the PIUs have the right team makeup to deal with these provisions that the bank is asking you to comply to? I have a template you'll be filling in those ones. Then we are also supposed to look at the PIUs equipped with all the tools they require to undertake their work. So it could be yes or no, but when you give that, you go to substantiate. Add some, in my language, call it some meat, something, meat on the bones. Yes, if yes, okay, what do you have, what can we learn from you? If no, then where is the gap? And what can be done about that? Then we also want to see what type of support can be provided by the bank to assist and ensure good coordination with the other key ministries and local authorities. Specifically, what are the capacity needs? I told you before that I worked for PIU. I was in a PIU, different PIUs in agriculture, in the road sector, some of the Ministry of Environment and Finance. What are the interlinkages? What type of support can the bank, or what can we put in place? Remember, the National Environmental Management looking on your projects. Maybe we've not had interaction. At what point can we start, or at what point do we interact with these other ministries? What are the challenges when we are doing this? Then,
can we sort out this issue of who takes charge of what before we continue, so that we don't miss anything?
No, this is going to be the last one. We're having just 5 slides. We will go for each slide, we discuss it, and then the secretary will take the notes. Then we move to the next question, we discuss it, then the secretary will take the notes. So the last one, which will be looking at, are there opportunities to support PIUs in terms of their public communication strategy when it comes to informing the project affected people about their rights, including their resettlement entitlements? What opportunities are there that they can take advantage of? So that is the kind of work we are responsible for in this group. Now that you know what is expected of us, can we have someone who is willing to lead this discussion? No problem. Yes, let's feel free to really to discuss this, and I think I will find out how much time we have.
Because I'm their boss, so I want to take that leadership.
The boss.
Because if I don't give my counterpart first, they crumble. They are always crumble.
Okay, so if you have no objection, you will take the lead on leading us through this discussion.
So let's have somebody who will be writing.
Writing, the template is here. He raises the issue, we discuss it, we get outline, this PowerPoint, bullet points, put them here, and we move to the next. We have I've prepared only 5 slides.
Okay.
Should take notes.
I already had the formal, but she's a very forward. Okay. I'll get
There
the
must be gender balance.
It's not balanced. You know, you saw the what was happening at the table yesterday.
J'ai cherché, j'ai trouvé, j'ai continué. Compte tenu de ces défis, CRMUC sollicite votre avis et commentaires sur la meilleure façon de faciliter une augmentation du niveau de soumission des plaintes des populations. Pour démarrer le processus, nous avons mis au point les questions suivantes à votre attention et discussion. Veuillez noter que cette liste n'est pas exhaustive et vous pouvez ajouter ou reformuler l'une des questions que vous jugez appropriées. Première question. Pensez-vous que CRMU a enfin assez pour diffuser les informations sur le MII et les projets financés par la banque pour les gens qui se trouvent là où ces projets sont en cours. Sinon, et à titre d'exemple, concentrant sur l'Afrique occidentale, comment la CRMU peut améliorer ses méthodes afin d'atteindre par la banque sont en cours. Moi, je pense qu'il faut aller question par question.
On peut commencer.
On peut lire.
Comment CRMU peut améliorer la façon dont elle s'engage avec les OSC afin de mieux répondre aux questions posées par l'impact négatif du projet financé par la BAD sur les populations touchées. 3. Outre la diffusion des formations aux populations touchées, quels sont les autres rôles actifs que peuvent jouer les OSC en aidant les populations touchées à soumettre leurs plaintes à la CRMU? 4. Comment la CRMU et les OSC peuvent collaborer lorsque la CRMU a des difficultés pour en engager des activités de résolution de problèmes et d'examen de conformité? 5. Quels sont les défis qu'ont rencontré les OSC dans le passé, tout en aidant les populations touchées à résoudre leurs problèmes découlant de projets financés par les banques multilatérales de développement? 6. Selon vous, quelle action générale et immédiate pensez-vous qu'elle devrait être par les deux parties, CRMU et les OSC, afin de poursuivre le dialogue lors de cet atelier? Vos contributions sont entendues pour alimenter le deuxième examen du mécanisme d'inspection indépendant. Cet examen, à partir de novembre, sera conclu en juin 2014 avec modification apportée aux règles de procédure de IRM, exploitant et améliorant les modalités institutionnelles de CRMU. Monsieur le Président, voilà les questions. Bon mandat terminé.
Oui, merci madame. Est-ce que quelqu'un a une remarque d'ordre général avant de passer? Je pense qu'on doit, s'il y a une question d'ordre général, qu'elle soit posée tout à l'heure, mais par avance, j'aimerais qu'on aille directement vers les questions. On en ajoute d'autres ou on les discute une à une. Ouais. Sinon, quelqu'un a une remarque qui nous la fasse et la bienvenue par rapport à la lecture.
Moi, je suis d'avis sur ce point-là. On peut commencer question par question. Et au fur et à mesure, s'il y a des questions qui nous viennent, on les ajoute. Et ça nous permettra d'être plus efficaces.
Ok, adopté, monsieur.
Bien, moi, j'ai un petit problème parce que Zainab n'est pas là. Peut-être qu'elle serait la mieux indiquée pour. C'est-à-dire la division dans laquelle elle est, et puis cette division-là. Dans la division où elle est, la division doit se doter d'une entité chargée de la société civile composée des représentants de la société civile et de la banque. Alors, je ne sais pas quelle corrélation cette division et cette entité-là qui sera logée sur la division des Zainab sera en interaction avec CRMU d'une part et d'autre part avec cette même entité, avec le reste de la société civile, qui ne serait pas membre de ce truc.
Je peux tout de suite vous répondre. La structure dans laquelle travaille Mme Zainab est impliquée, est vraiment la structure qui s'occupe de ça. Et tout à l'heure, avant de commencer, j'ai dit que c'est Zainab qui devait théoriquement modérer cette discussion. On a attendu 5-6 minutes, elle n'est pas venue. On est obligé de commencer. Et en cours de route, si elle vient, elle pourra. Mais malheureusement, elle n'est pas là, je ne sais pas, elle doit peut-être avoir une urgence ou quelque chose. Mais puisqu'on ne peut pas attendre, on a décidé de commencer, de discuter. Sinon, sa présence est absolument indispensable. On ne peut rien faire sans la structure qui est en charge de la société civile. Donc on peut, si vous le permettez, commencer et puis discuter point par point les 6 questions, en rajouter ou en améliorer certaines, quelque chose, et la parole est donnée à qui la voudra. Par rapport à la première question, si vous le permettez, pensez-vous que l'unité CRMU en fait assez pour diffuser des informations sur le mécanisme de contrôle et les projets financés par la banque pour les gens qui se trouvent là où ces projets sont en cours? Sinon, et à titre d'exemple, se concentrant sur l'Afrique occidentale, comment l'unité peut améliorer ses méthodes afin d'atteindre les gens sur le terrain là où les projets financés par la banque sont en cours? La question est très, très claire. La discussion est ouverte.
Président.
Oui, madame.
Moi, je répondrai à cette question par la négative, parce que je me dis que les gens ne sont pas, les informations ne sont vraiment pas aussi diffusées qu'elles doivent l'être. Surtout dans les zones où les zones qu'ils financent, les zones financement, les zones des projets. Donc je pense que vraiment il y a insuffisance de diffusion des informations. Je l'ai dit ce matin, et bon, avant qu'on aille déjeuner, j'ai dit qu'on a, c'est des populations analphabètes. Et là, 80 ou 90% de ces projets sont exécutés dans ces zones rurales. Ils ne savent ni lire ni écrire, donc la question revient encore. Quelles sont les stratégies à développer pour qu'ils puissent accéder à ces informations? Ce sont les plus utiles. Donc moi, je répondrai encore, c'est non d'abord, ce n'est pas bien aussi diffusé que ça se doit. Et la deuxième, j'ai fait une proposition. Il s'agit là de voir les zones d'intervention de ces projets. Si on peut, maintenant la télé est partout, dans tout le monde rural, presque, la télé fonctionne, télévision. Est-ce qu'au niveau de la télévision, on ne peut pas signer des contrats avec certaines radios et certaines stations et voir comment diffuser ça dans la langue la plus parlée du milieu pour que ces populations puissent être informées. Le maximum regarde la télé, dans leur langue. C'est une proposition.
Oui.
C'est tout.
Je me permets d'ajouter à la radio parce que c'est encore, ça atteint encore beaucoup plus les gens des zones rurales.
Oui, TV, effectivement.
Moi, je souhaiterais effectivement adhérer à sa proposition, mais également ajouter en termes de proposition également, utiliser les méthodes traditionnelles d'information dans nos villages, par exemple. Parce que lorsqu'il y a une réunion dans un village, on sait comment on informe en passant par toute notre société traditionnelle qui est mise en place, par le chef de toute cette hiérarchie. Donc, pour vraiment ajouter les méthodes traditionnelles de diffusion d'informations au sein de nos communautés. Il est important que le gouvernement utilise ces méthodes.
Comme bien chapeauter ça et cadrer, c'est un travail de communication. Et dans la communication, maintenant, on cible les outils. Oui. Donc il faut qu'on arrange là-bas la diffusion, on met communication. Maintenant, en bas, on fait tirer les outils.
Donc la rédactrice en chef, tu es connu. Donc ce n'est pas assez. On vous invite.
Ils savent s'organiser.
On vous invite, viens.
Non, je voulais adhérer aux deux précédentes propositions et dire qu'on gagnerait beaucoup à structurer notre plus-value puisqu'on nous interpelle en termes d'acteurs complémentaires aux actions de l'État et de la banque pour montrer en quoi nous pouvons être aussi un acteur complémentaire à la facilitation de l'accès à l'information. Et moi, j'avais pensé que j'adhère à la proposition qui vient d'être faite de chapeauter le volet communication. Mais je pense qu'avant ça, on peut essayer de mettre sous forme de process quelle va être la contribution de la société civile par rapport à ce problème qui a été dit aussi. Je pense que dans un premier temps, il se pose un problème d'appropriation par les organisations de la société civile et par ricochet aussi des communautés, des portefeuilles de projets de la banque au niveau des différents pays. Parce que tout part de là. Si vous n'avez pas une idée du portefeuille de projet, donc pour moi le processus, voilà, dans un premier temps, il nous faut améliorer notre accès en tant que société civile pour les communautés aux différents portefeuilles de projets dans nos différents pays. Ça c'est très important. Une fois qu'on a cette information, j'avais même mis en amont une autre action, mais je vais commencer par là. Et on peut maintenant développer ce que nous avons appelé tantôt.
Juste une précision. Oui. Par quoi vous entendez améliorer notre processus d'accès à l'information? De demander à la banque ou s'organiser, l'assurer cela?
J'ai un schéma que je vais vous décrire. Oui. Dans un premier temps, moi j'avais dit qu'une des actions prioritaires que nous devrions faire dans les différents pays, c'est d'abord de constituer des groupes d'intérêt de la société civile pour les actions de la banque. Parce que c'est utopique de penser que toutes les organisations de la société civile vont s'intéresser aux actions de la banque. Voilà. Il y a ce que nous appelons les organisations de dialogue, qui font les questions de dialogue de politique, le suivi donc des politiques publiques, qui font aussi les questions de transparence, de contrôle citoyen. Donc on peut constituer des petits groupes d'intérêt d'abord pour la banque. Une fois que vous avez ce groupe d'intérêt, une des actions secondaires que ce groupe doit faire, c'est d'aller à la recherche de l'information sur le portefeuille projet. Et une fois que vous l'avez, en troisième lieu maintenant, vous développez toutes les actions d'information et de communication et d'éducation de la population pour que la population ait accès à cette information. On pourrait maintenant, à la suite de ça...
Vous avez le schéma.
J'ai un schéma ici.
C'est une organisation interne de la société civile.
Voilà. Mais comme on veut savoir comment on peut procéder, parce que ça va nécessiter à la fin des appuis dont Jacques avait parlé et je pense que Patrick aussi en avait parlé tantôt. Donc une fois qu'on a ça, la quatrième étape que j'avais imaginé, que je partage avec vous, c'est discutable, hein, je pense qu'il faut former aussi des relais communautaires, parce qu'on ne se répare là permanemment. On a beaucoup de choses à faire au niveau de la société civile et la BAN n'est qu'un partenaire parmi tant d'autres avec lesquels nous travaillons. Donc il faut imaginer des relais communautaires qui sont là et qui comprennent aussi les intérêts donc, de comment saisir ces différents mécanismes qui sont là. Et ce sont ces gens maintenant qui peuvent, au sein de la communauté, être des diffuseurs de messages par rapport donc, à ce qui est. Donc moi j'avais pensé à 4 étapes. Il y a d'autres étapes qui sont.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Group 1, Francophone. Group 1, Anglophone. We're looking at certain questions, problem solving at the PIUs, stroke CRMU and government. The group members from Sierra Leone, Liberia, Nigeria, and Ghana. As you can see them, I'm the chairman of that group, Sam Morisaruna from Sierra Leone. You have a group of engineers. I was surrounded by engineers. You have Engineer A.T. Bafo from Ghana, Isaac Mohammed from Nigeria, Engineer Wilson Inugu from Nigeria, Emmanuel Akin Umi from Nigeria. He works for the Afdb. J. Augustine Too, Honorable Commissioner, Anti-Corruption Commission, Liberia. Engineer Charles Okongo, Nigeria, and Engineer Madam Vanda Pullen, who was my secretary. The first question we have is, do the PIUs have the right team make up to deal with all the provisions of bank policy? As a group, we thought the answer is no, because the staffing of the PIUs are pulled from the mainstream of government agencies, and therefore most of the time they do not have the full complement of the staff requirement. And like we see, other PIUs are just put together, while some PIU are taken from different government ministries. Some are put together from different backgrounds, so they do not have the provisions, they do have much knowledge about the provisions of the World Bank policies. Then related to that, at the appraiser state, at the appraiser project state, the staffing of the PIUs must be identified and adequately budgeted for. Of course, the second one is some members of the team may not have worked on bank finance projects and may not be conversant with the bank policies. It's in support with the first answer. The related question to that, at the project appraisal stage, we suggest the staff of the PIUs must be identified and adequately budgeted for by the bank. Also, we suggest that they include environmental and safeguards specialists in the project team, and this must be enforced. And the person must be able to manage gender issues as well, not only environmental and safeguard issues. Also, the capacity of the team in terms of training before the actual project implementation. Capacity in terms of institutional and equipment. The second question, are the PIUs equipped with all the tools they required to undertake their work? Here also we say the answer is no. The reason being that most of these are to be procured using counterpart funding to be provided by the borrower. The borrower is who? The government. And we know most of these governments are constrained. The issue of counterpart, as we know, is a problem. To access, to be provided for and to be accessed and to be given is a problem. Also, the borrower is not able to provide the resources that's required according to either the financing agreement or the loan agreement signed. We also suggest that equipping of the PIUs must be included in all financing agreements, whether it's a protocol of agreement or loan agreement. The third question was, what type of support can be provided by the bank to assist and also ensure good coordination with other key ministries and local authorities? Specifically, what are the capacity needs that should be addressed? One, generally we'll talk about capacity building. This may entail twofold: talk in terms of equipment, like setting up the office, vehicles, electronic gadgets, and also training. They are all embedded in what we refer to as capacity building. Secondly, we think about the provision of project preparation fund that is done by the World Bank, which they call the FPP, Project Preparatory Facility. I don't know whether that is how they call it because they keep on changing the names. So we are appealing to the African Development Bank to adopt this same method so that at the initial stage, funds will be ready to do all these necessary things so that at least this project will be implemented, the project will be implemented fully. We also talk about resettlements of compensation must be part of the project package instead of depending on government counterpart funding or contribution. What we are saying, we've seen that the Afdb, most times, this is not part of their policy. So for now, we are recommending that this has become issue on the part of the borrower, and it has delayed project implementation all over. So we are requesting the Afdb to take them on board during project preparation stage, that compensation sums will be, they will be able to take part of it to be financed, this compensation fund, rather than leaving it to the borrower instead, who are solely. Are there opportunities to support PIUs in terms of their public communication strategy when it comes to informing the project affected people about their rights, including their resettlement entitlements? Yes, we agree to this one. Why? We say that the bank should make available the communication handbooks to the PIU. This is like the manual. If this one is made available to the PIU, the coordinator and the staff, they will be at least to know, like a milestone, what they're supposed to pass on to the people. The other one is we suggest hiring of a communication specialist within their PIU. Then under that, we can do that also education through workshops and training, and also sensitization programs through both print and electronic medias. Stakeholder consultations also are part of it. And look at community stakeholders involvement. What are the problems PIU face in the process of property valuation and actual compensation of affected people? We look at this question critically and we come out with these answers. We look at it that the issue as central approval process of valuation of properties is a challenge. It's a challenge to projects in some countries, although not to all, but this is a challenge. How? What do you mean by that? To get people to approve the valued properties is a legal issue, and who will clear it? In some other countries, they have a board, And that board is responsible for all the projects. So you see the volume of work that delays. Some other countries, it may be the Attorney General's office. Some other countries, it may be a collection of key stakeholder ministries like lands, Attorney Generals, and the rest. So we think it's a challenge. Also, multiple ownership of land and landed property also put a challenge there. It's an issue. In terms of compensation, when you're going to pay for one property, you may have 2-3 people coming forward to claim that property. Maybe the landlord will come and the tenant will come say, oh, I've stayed here for long, they've leased this place to me for 5 years, I have the document to read. Whom are you going to pay? It's an issue. Complicated land tenure systems in some countries also is an issue in compensation valuation of property and compensation payments to PAPs. After properties have been valued, payment of compensation to the PAPs is also a challenge. As we've said it, compensation is an issue. Compensation payment is an issue. So we need to address it between the bank and the borrower, how to take this one to sit and discuss it. Because if we sign a project and government is not able to pay compensation, that project automatically will delay. So it's like a roundtable conference, issues, we discuss it to make things move forward. How can the bank help in strengthening capacity of project grievance mechanism and locally existing committees that PIUs rely on in compensation process? We look at this and we say the funding should be made available as part of the project stroke loan package. These are issues of payment. It's the same thing like we are coming to it. If you put this one, you leave it only to the borrower, it may hinges on delay also. So we are recommending, as before we've recommended, that the funding from Afdb or Afdb policies look at this one, change their policy or the goalpost of coming on board to take or to pay, if not 100%, but a greater part of this one, so that it will enhance project implementation. So we also talk about technical assistance to the PIU by hiring a resettlement and mediation officer in as a grievance mechanism. That will enhance the coordination and it will help smooth implementation of that project. We also talk about the setup of a complaints to grievance and mediation unit with the bank support. What are the recurrent problems facing or during monitoring and evaluation of projects resettlement plans that warrant further support? Or we said it's multiple claims to ownership of land and landed property. They keep on coming. Evaluation of resettlement, the issue of resettlement plans. This is clear, it came out clearly across the country, across issues, well experienced, PIO project coordinators with experience from the sub-region, the Anglophone sub-region, that the ownership of land, as I've explained, and landed property poses a challenge in the resettlement plan. It keeps on coming. There also lack of transparency in compensation administration. Here, the question of transparency, corruption, and other things is an issue. Then PAPs, that is project affected persons, taking undue advantage of the situation. Some will want to be paid twice in the situation. They too have a share of the issue. Then delay in the payment of the compensation. Either the money is not there at all with some government, or there are bottlenecks created by individuals or by institutions. What is it specifically that CME should do to enhance PIU's mediation, stroke problem solving, and facilitation capacities? We say it's institutional capacity building. I just have to go over that. Specifically that CME, we say the CME should enhance the capacity of these PIUs, building their institutional capacity, basically. Then you come to about equipping and training the others. Then you come into training. The CMUs will also continue with their outreach programs as we are here to the PIUs. Even after this one, I think the resources we talk to them may be available, if at least if they can go once or twice, to the PIUs, on regional basis or whatever modality they come out with. We think that will enhance the mediation of problem solving. They also will talk about regular or timely update of information on the ADFB website. Then what do you think should be the general but immediate follow-up actions from the CRMU and PIUs to government in order to carry on the dialogue started during this workshop? We say from here, you have to empower and equip the field offices of AFDB in this sub-region to provide readily support to PIUs. And secondly, continuous dialogue and engagement of the CMU with the PIUs. I thank you.
Well, thank you very much. My suggestion is to listen to the Francophone group, and then we can see if the others have a few things to add. Oui. Je suppose qu'après, vous allez mettre ça sur version électronique pour nous, hein? C'est très gentil. Yeah, please. Exactly. Okay. All right, thanks. Okay. Merci. That was really... You managed to pull...
How this will be connected?
You want to find it?
So you'll be using this one?
No, she's not. She doesn't have the PowerPoint. She will just make a verbal. Non, c'est bon, c'est bon. Merci beaucoup. Venez comme ça, on va... Il y a le micro là.
Bonsoir. Je crois que la présentation, je peux m'en passer. On va essayer sur le groupe francophone, on va essayer de répondre aux 4 préoccupations. On a jugé nécessaire de rester dans le cadre de ces 4 questions, compte tenu du temps qui nous est vraiment imparti. Donc, la première question, c'était de savoir si les PIU ont-ils la bonne équipe pour traiter toutes les dispositions des politiques de la banque. Le personnel de PAI est-il bien informé de ce problème? Les PAI sont-ils équipés des outils dont ils ont besoin pour effectuer leur travail? Quel type de support ils ont besoin? Qu'est-ce que les départements de la banque tels que les OR, QR, les CREMI doivent faire dans ce sens afin de les aider. Donc, les réponses qu'on a proposées à ces différentes questions, c'est pour la première question, on a dit, bien sûr, les cellules d'exécution des différents pays disposent des moyens humains pour vraiment répondre à ces préoccupations soulevées dans cette question. Mais la mise en synergie qui est nécessaire, et c'est ce qui fait défaut compte tenu de la mobilisation des parties prenantes. Qu'est-ce qu'on veut dire par là? On sait que dans les différents pays, les cellules d'exécution travaillent en concert avec d'autres départements, d'autres structures, d'autres institutions. Quand on met une cellule d'exécution en place, on l'équipe de tout ce qu'il faut. Mais à côté de ces institutions, les institutions avec lesquelles les différentes cellules d'exécution travaillent ont souvent besoin d'être équipées. Donc, c'est ce problème qu'on a soulevé. Et en revanche, on dit qu'il est nécessaire d'un renforcement des capacités du personnel de ces différentes structures. Et on dit aussi, pour renforcer, il faut renforcer les capacités des cadres sur le plan de sauvegarde environnementale, et juridique et sociale. les agences d'exécution des projets ont généralement besoin aussi d'être informés. C'est vrai, qu'en les mettant en place, on les dote souvent des moyens, on les forme, mais il faut quand même renforcer leurs capacités pour qu'ils puissent répondre aux exigences, aux besoins, à l'évolution des projets. Ça, c'est un peu les éléments de réponse aux séries de questions de la première partie. Maintenant, la deuxième question, y a-t-il des possibilités de soutenir les cellules d'exécution en fonction de leur stratégie de communication publique quand il s'agit d'informer les personnes affectées par les projets sur les droits y compris? Donc, là aussi, la réponse qu'on a trouvée à ce niveau, on dit qu'il y a des besoins d'appui en communication de cellules d'exécution dans leur stratégie de communication pour la prise en compte des droits des personnes affectées par le projet, dans l'exécution des projets. On a pris comme exemple les stratégies de communication des médias. Il faut vraiment renforcer les médias dans ce sens pour qu'ils puissent bien informer les populations affectées dans l'exécution de ce projet. La troisième question, quels sont les problèmes dont font face les cellules d'exécution dans le processus d'évaluation des biens et l'indemnisation effective des personnes concernées? Là aussi, il y a 3 séries de questions. Et les réponses qu'on a trouvées à ces 3 séries de questions, on a dit, par exemple, comme premier élément de réponse, il y a l'évaluation des biens expropriés. Et ce problème est vraiment récurrent, je crois qu'on le trouve à tous les niveaux. Au moins de l'évaluation des projets. Et quand on dit, par exemple, je prends un exemple, un bâtiment, on peut l'évaluer à un certain nombre d'argent, mais au moment du paiement, on trouve la valeur a largement dépassé ce qui a été évalué. Donc, les cellules d'exécution font face à ces problèmes dans les pays. Donc, il y a aussi comme solution à ce niveau, on dit qu'il y a nécessité d'actualiser les lois d'expropriation. Et c'est en ce sens qu'on a sollicité un peu l'appui de la BAD. Parce que pour actualiser les lois, c'est vraiment, le coût est énorme et les pays ne peuvent pas faire face à tout ce dont on a besoin. On a aussi soulevé les temps qui s'écoulent entre l'évaluation et la réinstallation pour effectuer ces indemnisations. Donc, à ce niveau aussi, on a trouvé qu'il y a un lenteur dans le décaissement de fonds. Il y a aussi, à ce point, on dit que la banque doit permettre une étude des principes directeurs de biens des personnes expropriées. Donc ça aussi, c'est un peu une sollicitation qu'on a fait dans ce sens. On dit aussi qu'il faut examiner les personnes affectées et qui n'ont pas le droit d'être dans le site. Sur ce point, je m'explique. Par exemple, quand on prend le cas de la construction d'un projet, d'une route, disons, quand la route doit passer par un point, on peut se rendre compte que les personnes à indemniser n'ont pas les papiers appropriés des bâtiments qu'ils occupent, qu'on doit vraiment déguerpir pour la construction de la route. Donc, il y a aussi ces problèmes qu'on rencontre à tout moment dans l'exécution de nos projets. Comme problème récurrent, on a cité, entre autres, la non prise en compte des ayants droit et les indemnisations. Là aussi, l'explication que je peux donner à ce niveau, c'est que par exemple, au moment de l'évaluation, on peut trouver que le propriétaire même du bien en question, il est là, mais au moment de procéder à l'indemnisation, il n'est plus là, ce sont ses enfants qui sont là, donc il vient poser d'autres problèmes, il vient soulever d'autres problèmes que les titulaires même du bien n'a pas soulevé. Donc, on a aussi à gérer ces cas de problèmes. Il y a aussi l'examination des personnes affectées, mais qui n'ont pas le droit, bon, c'est ce que je viens d'expliquer, cas d'occupation illicite aussi, on rencontre très généralement dans la gestion de nos projets. Et la quatrième question, les éléments de réponse qu'on a trouvés à ce niveau, on dit, il faut, parce que là on dit qu'est-ce que le CREME peut vraiment faire pour améliorer la médiation. Il y a des cellules d'exécution qui sont mises en place. Peut-être ce que la BAD peut faire à travers ce département, c'est d'aider les pays à mettre en plus au sein de ces cellules d'exécution, des cellules de médiation pour vraiment gérer les cas liés dans les projets auxquels on rencontre ce genre de problèmes. Et pour ça, il faut renforcer les cellules d'exécution dans la prévention, la médiation et la gestion des conflits autour de ces projets. Donc, voilà, entre autres, les quelques éléments de réponse qu'on a eu à apporter à ces 4 questions. Je vous remercie.
Moi, je vous remercie énormément. Est-ce que les 2 autres groupes, est-ce que vous avez quelques commentaires avant qu'on ne passe à vos présentations? Est-ce que vous avez eu des idées de ce côté ou ça va? Hein? Non, attendez une seconde là, parce qu'on va... Ouais, tu vois, il y a quelqu'un... Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, monsieur Alouka de Togo. En tant qu'organisation de la société civile, c'est vrai que je n'ai pas vu dans leur présentation où est-ce qu'ils voient qu'ils pourraient éventuellement collaborer avec la société civile au niveau des unités d'exécution des projets. Mais on a toujours eu des problèmes quant à la collaboration avec ces entités-là. Très souvent, c'est nous qui sommes là à rappeler que les procédures de la banque, par exemple, ne sont pas suffisamment respectées. Et dans certains cas, on nous a traité de tous les mots. Voilà. Donc, je ne sais pas, dans ce contexte précis de collaboration entre les entités d'exécution de projets financés par la banque et la société civile, comment peut-on améliorer, puisque cette question n'est pas revenue dans nos échanges, comment peut-on améliorer ce cadre de collaboration également?
Est-ce que... Oui.
Merci, monsieur le directeur. Juste pour appuyer peut-être l'intervention de mon collègue, mais donner l'information. Au fait, des fois, on nous implique, ce matin, je disais que je fais partie du comité de pilotage d'un projet financé par la BAD. En tant que société civile, on nous implique, mais dans l'exécution de ces projets, on sent qu'on n'est pas réellement impliqué de la manière dont il fallait le faire. Et souvent, lorsque les missions de suivi de la banque arrivent dans les pays, ils n'ont pas tellement le temps à écouter la société civile et voir comment la société civile peut apporter des préoccupations au niveau des pays. Donc, juste l'implication de la société civile, il faudrait que ça soit un peu clair, que nos gouvernants nous disent comment ils peuvent vraiment prendre ça en compte. Il faut qu'on nous implique, on doit nous impliquer normalement, efficacement, mais pas pour nous mettre parce que la banque exige que la société civile soit représentée au sein des comités de pilotage. Merci.
Est-ce que nos amis des PIUs, est-ce que vous avez quelques... Yes.
I think the first group, the Anglophone group, we raised an issue about the generic form because the specific, for these questions which we read, we had a problem where a specific project will have different inputs. So we were suggesting to the bank, and I think they might have forgotten to raise it, that at least they give us a generic structure of the PIUs. Now, when we get that generic one, then depending on particular project, at least the minimum group of the manager, the financial, the procurement specialist, environmental, and social who will take the gender, that may be the generic distance. Then, in special case where compensation is more, you need a resettlement action manager. So that generic thing, I think we suggested it and it wasn't captured.
Anna, you noticed that one, huh? I think that's an extremely useful suggestion. At least some guidelines in terms of the composition of a PIU, and people can use that template and expand depend on what the specific issues are. So let's note that, and we'll discuss it later. Right.
We were also talking about when you reach like at project appraisal level where you may see the requirements. There could be certain requirements that are not common to all projects but specific to that particular project. So we are thinking that the bank should make effort to have that taken into consideration as they propose the composition of the team.
Then I was very much interested in this issue of making sure that when supervision missions are out there in the field, that they make it a point to have a little more interactions with CSOs. So let's maybe internally, you can think about this and see what we can do with operations to reflect on that, huh? Yeah. Okay, I mean, that's a good question. I think let's reflect on it. Yeah, PIUs, I mean, CSOs would like to know, Yes, we start here and then we'll go to you.
I think I would raise about the concern he has raised. To answer him directly, some of the questions we are very specific. But in areas that we are not specific, I think you cannot leave CSOs, in project implementation. That's why we refer to them as stakeholders. They are the key stakeholders. In our presentation, if you go through, we're referring to, all the stakeholders. So if we're going to explain who are the stakeholders in project implementation, you go leaving out CSO, then they are not complete. So we are not left out. Refer to you as you are the key stakeholders. Even in the strategy of information, you are the key strategy. You represent the voices of the PAPs, the project affected people. Only thing you're communicating to them, when you get onto you, then easily it will get onto the people. So you are not forgotten. You are part of the stakeholders. It's only that we did not mention, specifically because of time, and it's a PowerPoint, a CSO. Thank you.
C'est par rapport à la préoccupation de la société civile. Je pense que c'est congénital à la structure du traitement du dossier, puisque les questions étaient assez précises et nous devions traiter pour les unités de gestion d'exécution des projets, les responsables gouvernementaux et également aussi pour les commissions anticorruption et autres. Et donc nous avons répondu aux questions. Sinon, en principe, nous sommes partie prenante comme eux dans le processus et nous restons ouverts au débat et au dialogue autour de la question. Je pense que c'était par la structure des questions qui nous ont été adressées. Nulle part nous a demandé d'aller au-delà et c'est peut-être pourquoi nous, on n'en a pas parlé.
I want to thank everybody, and especially the two groups now, for their presentation. And this was really, I saw more things than I thought. It's extremely, extremely useful for us. Thank you very much. Merci. Donc, le groupe francophone, on s'attend à votre... si vous avez besoin d'une machine, on peut régler ça rapidement. Voilà. Yes. Oh. Can we invite the other two groups to come? Les quoi? CSO, Anglophone and Francophone. Let me start with the Anglophones first, CSOs. And
my name is Osman Rahman from Ghana. Yes, our group, we had participants, just for the sake of that, I'm just going to call the country that were represented. Liberia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Togo, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Kenya, Switzerland, then from the World Bank, Sergey was our leader, Lebanon, if I be so direct. And then from CRMU, and that was Yusuf. So those were the countries and persons that were represented. So question 1, do you think that CRMU is doing enough to disseminate information about IRM and bank-funded projects to the people who are located where these projects are being undertaken? If not, and by way of example, how can CRMU improve its methods of reaching the people on the ground, focusing on West Africa? So this was the first question. So when we began, there was a question. Actually, Sergey was our group leader, and he posed a question. How many of you here have heard about CRMU before? I mean, being invited to this meeting, and it came out that many of us actually were hearing CRMU for the first time. You know, and that goes to say the extent to which, you know, the dissemination effort of CRMU is working. And so it means that there's a lot of work to do. And therefore we suggested that the bank should engage more with civil society, very broadly. And then we said that the term civil society is should be understood in a broad sense, not only referring to CSOs, because we talk about community groups, we talk about, you know, different forms of civil society, you know, how they organize. So we should be able to define that. And CSO should also be part of the requirements of the project design. I mean, the involvement of CSO should be taken as part of the requirement when projects has been designed, so that this is worked throughout the process. We also said that there should be trained persons from, the CRMU to communicate with civil society at the country level. Okay, we said country or regional level. That is actually required so that that interface can be effective. And that we should also make more use of innovative methods of communication, use of cartoons, brochures, audio visuals, social media, and especially community FM radio stations, because we found that in many of our communities, the people cannot read and write, and the material that we have, you know, may not be appropriate for them. To also have included in project documents about CRMU and its mandates. Question number 2, how can CRMU improve the ways in which it engages CSOs in order to better address the problems arising from the negative impact of the bank's funded projects on PAPs? And we have suggested that the CRMU should disclose project documents and other project-related information. They should also have a database of specialized CSOs in thematic areas. And of course, we also said that it's not just thematic areas. There are also specialized CSOs, you know, who are engaged in specific activities like monitoring expenditure, you know, those kind of things. Some of them specialize in anti-corruption, so that are not necessarily thematic. And that we should also have appointed a trained point of contact with civil society in the CRMU at the field level. And this means that we learned about attempts to decentralize, and that this decentralization should be further pursued. Question number 3. Apart from dissemination of information to PAPs, what other active roles can CSOs play in helping the PAPs to submit their complaints to CRMU? We've suggested that CSOs can act as the medium, you know, through which these complaints can be channeled, developed, or whatever, so that they are more or less like intermediaries. The CSO should also act as medium to organize community-level focus group discussions, and also through community radio. Basically, this is about sensitizing the communities about their role, about what they can do, and all those things, so that they can take advantage of the rules and regulations that are there, procedures. Then we also made a commitment to disseminate CRMU information as part of our regular work with the communities. There's also a commitment that we should extend, or CSOs should extend the learning to more CSOs. In that case, we're talking about what we call the training of trainers. The learning that has taken place here can be taken further to other circles of, covering much more larger CSOs. And this should be done through the training of trainers. We also talked about developing and disseminating information materials to equip the CSOs. There's a lot of information that has been developed from here. Also, that could be a starting point, through which to disseminate the work of the CRMU. Then we also said that we should share information about upcoming projects, and we talked about creating a listserv. And that's just a network of CSOs through the email system, that information can be shared just by the click of a button. So it creates a listserv of CSOs. Okay, it's about the same thing. Question number 4. How can CRMU and CSOs collaborate when CRMU undertakes problem-solving exercises and compliance review activities? We suggested that there should be regular meetings of CRMU and CSOs. And there should also be regular sharing of information. And also that the CRMU should involve CSOs in field visits. And I think that this has been mentioned earlier on by this group. Then we suggested that the CRMU should cover the cost of all stakeholders participating in bank activities, like it is doing now. And then also, the unit should award enough time and space to participate, for CSOs to participate effectively. And that there should be mutual sharing of reports. Sometimes there are also reports that the civil society may also produce in terms of their work or monitoring, working with the communities. They can share those reports. At the same time, CRMU can also share reports from its side. And we talked about the need to establish a common understanding of the operation rules and procedures that the CRMU has produced. We all have those ones in our folders, but we said that we need to have a common understanding of how we interpret this while we work with the communities. And then we also said that we should draw up a possible solution to problems raised by PAPs. Question number 5. What challenges have CSOs faced in the past while helping PAPs resolve their problems arising from projects funded by multilateral development banks? And the suggestions we have are that they should be building, one problem has to do with building trust with communities or PAPs. I think we've discussed this issue a number of times, that sometimes there's not a very good relationship between the CSOs and the communities. Then there should be the issue of understanding project documents. In fact, there was discussed the complexity of project documents, how to interpret this. And so it's very important that, CSOs also understand, so that they can interface, they can interpret these clauses or whatever to the communities and the PAPs that they are going to interact with. We talked a lot about political interference. And there are many, many examples from the different countries. From Togo, we learned that there was a project where the communities had been helped to go through the process and then to be able to get compensation. And then when the day of payment came, there was a very big political heavyweight that was brought to the community. And everybody knew who this person was. So at the end of it, all those who actually claimed, came out, did the claims initially had to actually take off because of this kind of political person that came in there. So, and it comes at various levels. Even directly with the CSOs, we have issues of blackmailing, threats, divisive techniques about, divide and rule tactics, especially when people are, if the politicians are perceived, or people are perceived to be on the other side of a political divide. And of course, as I said, also occurs with the communities, both communities and CSOs. We also discussed the issue of weak capacity or lack of information of IRM procedures on the side of, the political people, because sometimes we say that people behave in ways because they lack information, because they really are not aware of what they are supposed to do, and therefore they will position themselves in a way that may be perceived to be counterproductive. So that needs to be addressed. We also talked about the issue of sociocultural beliefs as challenges, customs, taboos, and other things which affect some of these things, especially regarding women's participation and other issues like that. We have challenges of information on instruments that are not transparent. I think this issue has to do with some of the instruments that come. There are still some clauses that may have some, difficulty in being understood in the same way by everybody who reads it. And so these clauses maybe need to be looked at and then made more transparent. We have challenges dealing with private sector and getting the relevant policies, working. We discussed that when it comes to dealing with, the state or government, it looks like the bank is often very, very strict, very, very, about applying the rules and policies. But in dealing with the private sector, it looks like there are sometimes some of the, rules are bent a little bit. So this could be a challenge. Question number 6. What do you think should be the general but immediate follow-up actions from both CRMU and CSOs in order to carry on the dialogue started during this workshop? So we talked about creating a listserv, and this one, the CSOs themselves actually taking up the challenge. It's a commitment that the CSOs have made. And the listserv is meant to share information, across all the stakeholders. And then we also talked about creating a database of CSOs on the thematic and then also with the accountability and transparency agencies. We talked about the need for training of trainers, and that is to extend the knowledge or learning from this workshop. Then we talked about the use of innovative media, social media, as we talked about, Facebooks and other things like that, and also using the community radio, using drama, using the annotated, media like that, so that a lot of information can be translated into those forms. Then there's also the need to establish a CRMU trained field representatives, so that they can interface directly with the CSOs, civil society generally. Then we said that it's also important to prepare and share the final report from this workshop, so that we can all use that as a basis to follow up. Then we also think that CRMU should share the schedule of activities and feedback groups from the actual CRMU review. And then we should also organize in-country follow-up meetings. And I'm sure this has been mentioned also with the other previous presentation. We talked about the issue of rotational CRMU accreditation of CSOs and sharing with everyone. We said that yes, we need to involve CSO. There was a discussion about accreditation, but then this should be done maybe every 2 years, so that we can have the knowledge shared amongst as many CSOs as possible, so that it's not just concentrated on a few CSOs. Then CSOs will continually disseminate CRMU information, and I think this can take several. It's about maybe streamlining or mainstreaming in our activities, the issues from this workshop. Thank you very much.
Madam Ture, you see, you have plenty to work around, huh? This is incredible. I'm very grateful. No, a lot of extremely useful ideas, huh? Yeah. So I hope everybody, I mean, you've already met Zena because she's our person who's in charge of, the bank's engagement with civil society organizations from our side. So there's a lot of things that we have in common here, and we can pick up. So this is really, I'm very glad. Thank you very much. So can I go to the Francophone now? Yeah. Any thoughts from your side while they are, moving, huh?
Non, de très intéressantes propositions, notamment par rapport à... Je crois qu'ils ont... de toute façon, quand on va écouter le deuxième groupe, quand on va écouter le deuxième groupe, il y a beaucoup de similitudes, parce que j'étais dans le deuxième groupe, notamment ce qu'ils doivent faire. Je crois que ce qui est intéressant, c'est que la société civile aussi prend ses responsabilités en proposant elle-même des pistes d'appui par rapport à la meilleure connaissance du mécanisme indépendant de revue. Donc, je pense que c'est des bonnes propositions. Et de toute façon, je crois qu'à la sortie d'ici, il faut qu'on voit quelles sont les actions à mettre en œuvre dans le court terme. De commun accord qu'on s'entende avec un calendrier d'actions à court terme à mettre en œuvre.
Moi, je m'appelle Saon Flan et dans notre groupe, donc, nous avons eu donc à travailler sur le groupe 2, collaboration donc CSO, CRMU. Et les pays qui étaient représentés dans notre groupe, je vais les citer. Il y avait le Niger, il y avait le Mali, il y avait le Burkina Faso, il y avait la Côte d'Ivoire, il y avait la Mauritanie, le Togo, le Sénégal, le Ghana. Bon, il y avait aussi l'institution telle que ITU aussi, qui faisait partie de notre groupe. On nous avait posé donc 6 questions auxquelles il fallait répondre. Donc nous sommes allés question par question et nous avons essayé donc de répondre à ces différentes questions qui nous étaient posées. La première question, à savoir, pensez-vous que CRMI en fait assez pour diffuser des informations sur le MI et les projets financés par la banque pour les gens qui se trouvent là où ces projets sont en cours? Sinon, et à titre d'exemple, concentrant sur l'Afrique occidentale, comment la CRMU peut améliorer ses méthodes afin d'atteindre les gens sur le terrain là où les projets financés par la banque sont en cours? Sur cette question-là, de notre point de vue, nous avons noté qu'un effort a été fait. Il y a un effort qui est fait du côté des CRMU dans le milieu urbain pour informer les personnes. Donc, en milieu urbain, cependant, beaucoup reste à faire dans le milieu rural où vraiment nos populations ne sont pas informées dans ce secteur-là. Donc, on pense que CRMU doit vraiment engager des efforts, plus d'efforts dans ce sens-là. Les informations ne sont pas assez diffusées à ce niveau. Et donc, il faudra que CRMU doit travailler avec les CSO en tant qu'acteurs complémentaires, parce que c'est effectivement là que les CSO peuvent jouer un grand rôle en état donc cet autre acteur complémentaire dans la diffusion de l'information auprès donc de ces populations en milieu rural. Nous avons aussi dit qu'il faudrait que dans les moyens donc de diffusion d'informations, les structures impliquées, il faudrait aussi que CRMU implique les communes, parce que les communes aussi sont un bon
un bon relais de diffusion d'informations. Donc, il faudra penser à impliquer nos communes. Maintenant, où dans nos pays, nous sommes de plus en plus en train de communaliser tout notre territoire. Donc, c'est très intéressant d'utiliser ce canal-là. Donc, pour résumer donc, cette première question, nous avons pensé à tout un processus qui peut être mis en place. Et ce processus se décline en 7 points. Le premier point, donc, pour y arriver, c'est de susciter des groupes d'intérêt, disons des comités, des OSC qui travaillent donc sur les opérations de transparence et de reddition des comptes dans les zones d'intervention de la banque. Une fois que cela a fait, on peut aussi laisser appropriation donc, par les OSC du portefeuille des projets de la banque. Ensuite, en troisième position, on pourra donc informer, éduquer, on devra passer à l'information, l'éducation, la communication à l'endroit des populations, à l'aide de modules de communication en langue locale, particulièrement en utilisant les radios communautaires. Celui qui nous a précédé, les anglophones aussi, je pense qu'ils ont aussi mentionné ça, l'utilisation des radios communautaires. Quatrième point, nous avons aussi, c'est toujours dans la première question, il faut former des relais communautaires pour aider les populations dans la formulation des plaintes. Parce que, pourquoi nous parlons des relais communautaires, nous nous sommes dit, si les CSO, c'est vrai que les CSO ne pourront peut-être pas être tout le temps dans ces milieux-là ou dans ces zones-là pour assurer donc la diffusion de l'information. Donc, il est important que, au sein même des communautés, nous établissions des relais de diffusion d'informations, afin que s'il y a d'autres projets d'aventure, ils ont déjà cette formation et donc ils peuvent diffuser donc l'information auprès de leurs autres confrères. Donc, cinquièmement, la conception et la diffusion du processus de saisine du MI. Ensuite, sixième point, c'est le suivi, interpellation de la banque, évaluation de l'issue des plaintes. Parce qu'on s'est dit, il ne s'agit pas seulement peut-être de poser les plaintes, mais également, il faut qu'on s'assure que ces plaintes-là aboutissent. Donc, il faudrait que CSO également suive ce processus de plaintes et donc interpelle la banque au cas où éventuellement elle venait peut-être à ne pas donner suite. Donc il faut aussi évaluer, c'est ce que nous avons mis en point 6. Enfin, au niveau du 7e point, c'est de capitaliser donc et de diffuser des expériences réussies. Nous allons voir ce qui est réussi, il faut les diffuser, ça peut être au niveau de la sous-région, au niveau même national, pour que cela se sache et que cela aussi serve d'exemple. Ceci étant dit, nous venons à la seconde question, qui est à savoir comment CMU peut améliorer la façon dont elle engage les CSO afin de mieux répondre aux problèmes posés par l'impact négatif du projet financé par la BAD sur les populations. On s'est dit ici qu'il faut vraiment impliquer une implication totale des CSO dans la mise en œuvre des projets à travers un renforcement des capacités. Bon, en termes de renforcement des capacités, on a évoqué la possibilité de renforcer donc les capacités des CSO dans les procédures même de saisine, dans les procédures de CMU et tout ça. Donc voilà un peu ce qui peut aussi faire l'objet aussi des renforcements des capacités. Le service aussi peut améliorer l'accès à l'information à ces organisations de la société civile et aussi les accompagner dans la diffusion de l'information. La troisième question, je crois que c'est bien ça. Outre la diffusion d'informations aux populations touchées, quels sont les rôles actifs que peuvent jouer les OSC en aidant les populations touchées à mettre en œuvre leurs plaintes? Bon, ce que nous pouvons faire, c'est de sensibiliser, de former, d'assister les populations dans la formulation des plaintes. Pour cela, on pense que CMU aussi peut élaborer des dépliants, des plaquettes à l'intention des CSO sur les procédures de plainte, afin aussi de nous aider dans notre tâche. Et enfin, la quatrième question, c'est comment CMU et les OSC peuvent collaborer lorsque la CMU a des difficultés pour engager des activités de résolution des problèmes et d'examen de conformité. Dans un premier temps, on a dit qu'il faudra avoir recours aux CSO spécialisés dans la médiation. On peut noter, par exemple, ceux qui sont spécialisés dans la gestion et la prévention des conflits. Mais pour ce faire, le travail en amont, c'est que CMU doit identifier et répertorier donc ces CSO
Donc, il s'agit donc d'un travail de mapping donc, des CSO pour savoir quels sont les CSO qui interviennent dans telle ou telle discipline, dans telle ou telle spécialité. Ensuite, est-ce que nous avons répondu à la question? Au niveau de la cinquième question, pardon, quels sont les défis qu'ont rencontrés les OSC dans le passé, tout en aidant les populations touchées à résoudre leurs problèmes découlant des projets financés par les banques multilatérales de développement? Donc, on a dit ici qu'il y avait vraiment des difficultés de dialogue avec les autorités locales. On a aussi parlé de problèmes d'instabilité dans la représentation des OSC. On s'explique un peu au niveau des instabilités. Il s'avère que pour un projet, une mission de la BAD peut venir sur le terrain, parler à un certain nombre de représentants, et à la prochaine mission, ce n'est plus ces interlocuteurs-là qu'on rencontre. Parce qu'en temps, il y a d'autres interlocuteurs qui sont soit impliqués ou qui sont amenés donc à discuter, à échanger avec la mission. Donc cela, effectivement, c'est une difficulté, cela ne facilite pas ce dialogue-là. On a aussi parlé de la multiplicité des interlocuteurs dans la société civile, c'est toujours le même problème. Et donc cela, c'est un défi auquel il faut faire face. Enfin, selon vous, quelle action générale et immédiate pensez-vous qu'elle devrait être par les deux parties, CME et CSO, afin de poursuivre le dialogue lors de cet atelier? Oui. Nous sommes dit comme action immédiate, il faut qu'on profite des Open Days pour sensibiliser et informer le maximum des CSO dans les différents pays. Donc, étant donné que les Open Days, c'est quelque chose qui est prévu donc, par CMU, il serait intéressant d'utiliser ce canal-là pour informer le maximum de CSO sur ces différentes procédures qu'on nous a montrées ici. Oui. Il faut également donc saisir les opportunités des rencontres, des rencontres ou des forats organisés par la société civile pour diffuser l'information. C'est-à-dire que si dans nos différentes organisations, nous avons des manifestations, des rencontres, on peut éventuellement inviter CMU à venir diffuser l'information auprès de ces personnes. Enfin, il faut s'engager à restituer. Un autre point, c'est de s'engager à restituer les résultats même de cet atelier d'Accra au sein de nos différents réseaux ou plateformes. Ça serait soit par les emails, via notre site web, via les réseaux sociaux. On a également souhaité, en tant que francophone, que les différentes présentations qui étaient ici en anglais soient traduites en français pour faciliter la restitution au niveau de nos différents pays. Voilà un peu notre travail. Je vous remercie.
Merci énormément. From the PIU side, do you have any comments in light of those two excellent, reports that you have heard? Very good. That is a good indication that you're satisfied. Okay. No. Honestly, I think that we have enough material, and this was extremely useful and excellent. What I've listened to went far beyond my expectations, so I'm very grateful. So why don't we just then thank you very much for this good work. And what I would like to do now is what time is it now? It's almost 5 o'clock. 6:15. To be fair to you, I just want to take another 5 minutes, and then we close the session so that you can go and rest. The reason why I wanted to take 5 minutes, I had a PowerPoint presentation I will not even go through. I want to make sure that all that you have contributed here is material that the consultant and the team that we are going to put in place to do the IRM review is part of that work. So essentially, I wanted to let you know that we are starting a review now. This is an input to the review process. We will also ensure that when we meet with bank staff tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we have done that in Southern Africa, we are doing that here, that contribution also becomes part of the package that we will reflect on. And I can see a lot of good things that have come out here that we will use for that. A very crucial thing that you need to know, especially with CSOs, in the process there is a public consultation stage. The way it goes is as follows. We wrote the terms of reference, the boards approve the terms of reference, we are recruiting the main consultant. The IRM experts and ourselves are contributing to the work. We are asking, ORQR and the safeguards guys to try to contribute as well. Management will be contributing from their side in this review process, so that at least by February 2014, we can probably have a draft of the recommendations that will come out of those, all those consultative processes. And then those drafts are going to be posted on the bank website. So I promise that we will circulate it to you so that you can look at it again and see whether some of the things that you have, that are crucial have been reflected in that review process. So that is a commitment, and then we'll also share the outcome of the review, which I intend to present to the boards in June 2014. We hope that the boards would approve then in June 2014. So on that note, I don't intend... Some announcements before I let you go. Youssef?
Just 3 quick announcements. One, okay, my notes are there, but we have a reminder for the PIUs and government representatives on behalf of SEGL, who organized yesterday's meeting on disclosure and access information. So they invite PI project implementation units and government representatives for a dinner at 7:30 at the Lebedi Suite, which I believe is this one. So at 7:30. So they expect you there, and they asked me to remind you. 2, right as you're leaving today, there are going to be our colleagues that are going to take care of all the DSAs, and so I ask for your patience, and because there's a big group that's going to be coming out asking for the same thing, so please just have some patience, or if you want to go and come back, in any case, our colleagues are out there to take care of that aspect of your participation.
Tomorrow also.
And they're here tomorrow also. Yes, of course. And third, thank you all for participating at the CRMU specific day, and I'd also thank our translators who've been great, and our World Bank representatives as well. Thank you.
So, thank you so much. We close for tonight, and then we reconvene again tomorrow on corruption and integrity issues with my colleague Anna Bosman. So we look forward to that session tomorrow. And merci beaucoup. I see a hand over there before. No, I'm not holding you. He's the one holding you, okay?
Sorry, it's just a quick one. Yes, it's about the materials that have been generated so far from the start of the workshop. How are we going to be assured that we will get this information? I mean, how can we get this information somewhere?
You have my word for it. We are going to put everything on a stick shift, the electronic version, and then you go with it. Thank you very much. À demain.
Yes, I don't know.